All right, Ashley. So tell all the listeners what you do.
Well, I am a life coach. So I help people get clarity on what they really want and ultimately identify some small tweaks that are manageable that they could make in their life that would make a big difference. So that really comes down to setting clear goals, prioritizing, breaking those down into manageable action steps, and then I help hold them accountable to actually taking the action to get the results they're looking for.
Nice. Nice. So you help people become better. At,
Ultimately, yes, that's the
right?
goal.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do you also help provide clarity as to what better might look like for people?
absolutely. So a lot of times we're stuck in our ways of thinking, you've done something for so long, you don't see any other way of doing it. So I provide some perspective. I help give suggestions of things that they could try. But ultimately, I believe every person knows themselves best. And so I'm asking a lot of questions to help them figure out what it is that they actually want. What do you want to feel? Like, do you just say you want this because you think that's what's realistic? Or do you really want something different and you just need to figure out a plan to achieve it?
I like that. I'm assuming you go through exercises trying to draw from them exactly what they want, who they want to be, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a natural conversation just like this. I'm connecting with people, meeting with them exactly where they're at and just talking to them, asking questions to figure out, all right, what are the little micro actions that you can do that are going to move the needle and get you where you want to be?
You got a dog too, don't you?
I do have a dog that, just is lovely.
Uh, Dogs, kids, sometimes spouses. I mean,
Distraction.
that's symbolic of life, though, isn't it? I mean, that
It
it's
is.
how we deal with adversity and what our brain says to ourselves when those things happen, and how we deal with stress. How did you become an entrepreneur in this space?
Well, I had prior experience in the coaching realm. And so I learned a lot of great things. I learned kind of the basics of what it took to be successful. And then really, I had to just have a willingness to bet on myself.
Okay.
So I took a risk, went out to start my own company. And, the first thing I did was hire a coach. I can't say that I believe in the value of a coach and not have that in my own life as well. So I feel like I've always had a coach, always had some direction. I'm always looking for that guidance. And then the second thing was starting to network because, you got to know people, you got to be out there, you got to have exposure because business really comes from when people know you, like you, and trust you. And you have to create that.
Yes, there has to be action. The best laid plans of mice and men are nothing without action. Um,
Absolutely.
so so you mentioned the basics of coaching. Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, it's you got to have some kind of structure. You have to have a plan. You have to know what the action that you need to take that's going to move the needle is, and then follow through. So, that's kind of in general, whether it's the business side of things or the personal side of things. But I knew as far as business goes that, you have to track the money. So you have to be aware of like where your leads are coming from, who are your referral sources. Are they good referral sources or do you need better ones? How are you spending your time? Are you doing that generating more business or are you doing that in busy work? So being able to identify that is huge. Tracking your leads, tracking the money, and then always being able to make tweaks to the customer experience so that people want to come back and people want to refer you.
I like that. Yeah, because we both are in extremely competitive spaces. So I have a real estate business. I'm involved in a coaching business, uh, life coach. I mean, I was talking to the people in my coaching company. I said, "You do you realize how many individual coaches, all the way up to large corporations, where that's what they do, even though some of them don't even engage in the business that I do. So they don't sell real estate. What they sell is coaching for real estate agents. and it's an incredibly competitive marketplace. Everybody tries to be a little bit different. Everybody's got their systems. Everybody's got the one thing that I've realized is students can be given the game plan, and yet without the accountability piece, they don't get the results. So, what are things that you have learned over the last number of years? How many years have you been doing this?
Almost 3 years with my own business.
Okay, but you've been around the coaching world for a total of
Total of 11.
okay. And in all fairness, you've seen some of the best coaches that are out there, right?
Absolutely.
I give I give credit where credit's due. But what are some pieces of the accountability puzzle that you have seen that work really well for people?
Yeah. So honestly, one of the biggest things that I think is important is everybody is different. So you can't really treat them all the same. They can't be a blanket kind of coaching. You have to know what is somebody's individual motivations, what's their style, what's important to them. Because if you don't get to the why of why they're even getting out of bed, you're not going to be able to motivate them to do anything.
Right.
So, I mean, really, that's, I think, at the root of it all.
I like that. Yeah, and there are TED Talks on Simon Sinek has a really good one on finding your why. Uh, do you feel that people are more motivated by a reward or fear of punishment?
Well, people naturally, humans want to go towards pleasure and avoid pain. So that motivation level of whether it's a reward or a consequence is different for each person. So I usually start by asking them, okay, tell me about a time in your life when you were under some kind of pressure. What was it that got you to take that action? Was it a fear type of thing or was it a reward kind of thing? And you get them thinking about the past and what's working for them. And so that's where I feel like you really can identify what's going to be the biggest needle mover.
Yeah, yeah. And as you say that, I'm processing it, and you're right. Everybody has their own threshold. Everybody has their own motivators. Um, how much does ego for the student play in getting them to for them to actually surrender? Because ultimately, that's what this is, right? This
Yeah.
is going to a mentor, a coach, somebody that I look to for guidance, which is every successful person that I've met has somebody in their life that has helped them achieve that level. Um, how tough is it though for some of them, especially the ones that they've already achieved high income, they have wealth. I told my trainer, I did two classes a couple days ago. I did a fit class in the morning, and then I went to my trainer in the afternoon, and he was working the same. We were doing squats, we were doing leg things. My legs were exhausted, and I was doing a lunge squat. And the third set of them, I didn't pick up the weights because my legs were just and one of my legs I couldn't get underneath me if I needed to if I was going to fall. And he said, "Well, why don't you have weights? Where are the weights at?" I said, "I'm not going to use them on this set. I'm afraid that I'm at exhaustion, and if I collapse, I don't want to." And he goes, "Well, that's not the deal we made." And I said, "Well, I believe I'm the one paying you, so I believe I can make some type of a decision." And he looked at me and he said, "Really?" And I went, "You're right. You're right. I'm paying you to tell me what to do. It's I kind of give up that right to adjust it, right?" So do you deal with students that say, I get what you're saying, Ashley, and I agree if I did that, but I'm just too fearful or I'm at a level where I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone's got an ego. So it's just a matter to what extent. So you're talking about like surrendering and giving up that control and that autonomy to make your own decisions, which sometimes that is needed. When a person is their own biggest enemy, they're the ones getting in the way. It's constant distractions. Like if that's become a pattern, then yes, they ultimately need to surrender. And they're only going to do that if they, one, feel like you truly care about them. And if they feel like you have the credibility and the knowledge to help them get where they want to be. That's the only ways they're really going to surrender to you. But I also believe that's not always what's best. I do believe that each person is inherently the expert of their own life. So, like in your situation with the gym, I might say, "Oh, you're capable of doing these weights and these sets," but I might not know that you did a morning workout. I might not know that you haven't eaten any food today, And so if I just push you to a set standard like that blanket coaching, you could get hurt. So I feel like it's this relationship and dynamic where I'm going to give you a playbook. I'm going to tell you what to do and I'm going to try to hold you to that level. But if you have real reasons of why that's not okay, and it's not just a pattern that's happening all the time, I'm going to listen to you because I believe you know what's best and you'll modify, but still take some kind of action. You are still doing the lunges just without the weights. It would be different if you were like, I'm done for the day. I'm not doing anything, and that's where I'd probably come in with some tougher love.
Yeah, yeah. No, he was good, and he knew I had done lunges earlier in the day. But he
He just
did
didn't care.
say, well, and it wasn't necessarily passive aggressive, but the dude really gets excited when he knows that he's pushing my limit. And that's what he said later on. He said, "Look, I'm not going to put you in a position where I think you're going to get hurt or that's not what this is about. This is about you thinking that you can't do something and me showing you that you can." Because
Yeah.
that's where the growth happens. And I started laughing. He said, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "It's not just the gym, dude. Like it's life.
Yep.
It's we build these walls mentally where we say, no, I'm not gonna, I try to get people to do social media. Well, I'm not gonna do videos because nobody's gonna like them. Well, they don't have to like them. You need to do them because people that would love to hear what you have to say don't ever get that choice because you're never putting it out there. So getting people outside of their comfort zone is it's challenging. It's extremely challenging.
Yeah.
And if they resist and I mean, it all comes back to mindset. And that's why I love people that are in a growth mindset because it allows me to look at things from a different perspective. And it encourages growth all the way around. So I have found the 80-20 rule works in just about everything. And even in my real estate space, 20% of the agents want to get better. They want to try new things. They want to push themselves. And 80% say, and there still are, and there are still coaching companies that preach it, the same stuff they did 5 years ago. And I sit here and go, the world is changing and it's changing very, very fast, especially with AI. I should probably learn new things. I'm almost 60 years old. Do you think I want to learn how AI works and all that? No, I really don't. But it's in the business's best interest, it's in my best interest, and ultimately it's in my team's best interest for them to have a leader that understands what's going on. You mentioned something that I think is the key. I think in business in particularly and being an entrepreneur, I believe that influence is extremely important. And I also believe that the basis of influence is relationships. So, what are some things that you would coach around for people that might be, and then maybe they're introverts. They don't want to go to networking groups. They don't want to join Facebook communities. They don't want to be sold. Like
Yep.
everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. Um, how do you coach them to have better relationships, have more relationships, to get outside of that safe comfort zone?
Hmm. Well, in that kind of scenario, my first thought would be more questions around what do you really want? Because that might be somebody who's in a sales kind of position, but they're miserable, they hate it, they're doing it for the wrong reasons, maybe because that's what their parents did or the money,
The
like
money.
exactly. So if you're doing something for the wrong reason, you're never going to want to get out of your comfort zone. You're never going to kind of step into the person that you could be because you're not going to have the right energy, the right flow, the passion, and the excitement. So I would really try to help them get clear on that first. And then if they're committed, like, yes, I want to do this, then that's when it's more like, okay, well, here's what would get you to the next income level or to reach this goal or whatever it is that you want, what you're currently doing isn't getting you there. So you can keep spinning your wheels and crossing your fingers and hoping that something's going to change, or you can decide what you're willing to do differently. And so maybe it's not the same thing that me and you would say, do this and you'll get there faster. Maybe they want to do a modified version or something totally off the wall that we wouldn't have thought of. But then it's a collaboration of what are you willing to do? What feels good enough where like they have to feel comfortable enough to do it, but
Right.
uncomfortable enough to grow. So there's this balance, and then you kind of keep moving that target so that they continue to grow.
I love that. I love it. Do you set milestones for them? So say, hey, let's we want to, because I do 5-year visions, I do 1-year visions. I believe that people overestimate what they can get done in 5 years, and they underestimate what they can do in 1 year.
Yeah.
So I start with them and say, let's take a real honest look at where we are, where you are, and who you are, and let's create the ideal 5 year from now you. And then we work backwards. And if I can break it down into manageable chunks, like number one, um, you drink too much, so let's rein that in. What does that look like? And well, I'm not giving up. Well, I'm not saying you have to give up, but maybe tone back a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Boundaries.
there are easy things to pick out and say, oh well, if you get a bunch of speeding tickets, it's because you drive too fast. So how about we slow down a little bit? Oh, wow,
Yeah.
you cured it. Oh, yeah, I cured it. Okay, took a genius to figure that out.
Yeah.
Do you find it's easier to just give them little things that they can work on and then encourage that behavior of change?
Yeah. I mean, what I've seen with people, with the people that I've worked with, is they really struggle with the 5-year vision. I've seen that people, they're so set on who they are and what they're capable of, they can't envision a different life that's drastically different 5 years from now. They can't
Yeah,
imagine hitting this giant income goal or having this dream property or this fulfilling, loving marriage when what they have for reality right now is not that at all. So I found that having smaller, so I really only do like 1 year because that's more
yeah,
manageable for people to grasp. And then
sure.
even breaking that down to like, okay, what what do you have to do like daily or weekly to just move the needle a little bit? Like what's one little thing? Like in your example with the drinking, maybe they don't want to give it up or anything, but it's like, okay, well, could you, instead of drinking until 11 p.m. every night, could you cut it off at 10 p.m.? Or instead of drinking 7 days a week, could you only drink on the weekends? Or instead of drinking anytime, could you just drink during social events when you're like outside of the house or you're having people over instead of just hanging out, watching TV or relaxing at night? What's a little tweak that you can make that feels doable to you that could move that needle? And then, like you said, they're going to underestimate the changes they can make. But I've seen, I mean, in a couple months, people can be living a drastically different life. And I know it's possible. And so I bring that belief and that confidence to the calls with them. And it's like they buy in because of that.
I'm going to totally change this conversation. Does self-sabotage rear its ugly head every once in a while, or does it happen a lot?
All the time, constantly. I mean, people get out of the bed, they snooze one too many times and then they're like, oh, I just won't do my workout, you know, or they had a call run over and they're like, oh, well, now I don't have enough time to do my prospecting. It's like little things that they're giving themselves an easy out. They're sabotaging their goals versus something I like to talk about is A, B, and C goals.
Okay.
And so what that looks like is any goal, whether it's a personal goal or a work goal, having an a B, and a C. So for example, with working out, an A goal might be I'm going to work out for an hour at the gym. A B goal could be I'm going to work out for 20 minutes at home. And a C goal might be I'm going to take a 5 or a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
So it's like the A goal is always the best. That's what you're shooting for. But life happens. You might wake up, you're in a bad mood, you're sick, you're not feeling good, you're running out of time, you got these extra responsibilities because it's summer and you have kids, whatever it is. So then you take it down to, can I do the Beagle? Can I just do a 20-minute, any kind of workout at home? If it's really a bad day, do a 5-minute walk, because what that does is it still builds consistency in your life and you're still showing up for who you are and what you want to be. And
Right.
so you're going to find there's more opportunities to hit that A goal, but you're not totally letting yourself, off the hook. You're saying, I'm still going to do something. I'm just going to modify it down when needed.
I like that. I like that. And I found the easiest way to crush self-sabotage is discipline. Is
Yeah.
it also works really well with, um, the imposter syndrome,
Yeah. That's huge.
is consistently doing the things that you need to do that you know are in your own best interest for the future version of you, regardless of what your options are. Because,
Yep.
you give them A, B, and C, um, and after a while, you see how many times they chose A, chose B, chose C. Goes back to atomic habits, right? Just
Yeah.
a little teeny tweak here, makes a big change out there.
Yeah.
I I like all of those things. What would be what's something that somebody listening could do right now, this week, that would have an effective change on a behavior that they engage in that they don't want to engage in anymore?
Well, I think anytime you can have some set work hours and non negotiable routines, you're putting some structure into your life. And people inherently don't love structure or consistency. It's not the fun, sexy thing, but it's
Right.
really what allows you to live a better life and feel happier. So, I mean, that could be as simple as having a set time that you leave the office every day, or when you get home, putting your phone on do not disturb. I mean, you can set it up where it auto does it at a set time. So
Yeah,
doing that, so you're not getting these work calls and these distractions coming in. And you can change your voicemail to set those expectations to your clients and your referral partners. Um, having set time for personal things. So, whether it's a family dinner or working out or date night or your spirituality, you have to know that there's a set time you're going to get those in. Otherwise, you start to just feel burnt out and unfulfilled, which always affects the work front.
right, right.
um not doing anything in the morning, like having at least 30 minutes or an hour in the morning before you go to your phone, before you go to social media or you're checking your emails. Like, you got to get your mindset right, you got to do things for yourself. And if you feel like you don't have the time, it's always a choice. So another option is wake up an hour earlier to prioritize yourself before the kids get up or before the craziness starts and people start calling. So those little things, you could pick one of those things and it would have a huge effect on everything else.
I love that. I love that. I like the idea of, and I do, I wake up before the world starts. So I'm usually up between 5:30, and I spend 15 to 30 minutes, and I write down three things I'm grateful for, three things I'm absolutely going to get done today.
Yes.
A little gratitude to kind of get the mind right before the world wants to take attention.
Yep.
What's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you, Ashley?
So, I'm old school. I take a good phone call,
What?
so,
What?
people, they can go to my website. I like to keep things simple. It's just lifecoachingwithashley.com. I'm on socials. So Ashley Tschumperlin. So, any of those ways are great.
Okay, so life coaching with Ashley,
Correct.
ASHLEY.com. Easy, easy. Well, I appreciate your time today. I wrote down some notes. That's why I love these conversations, because it's always, I'm a firm believer in, you should always be growing,
Yes.
and conversations like this help with it. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. And I hope you do as well.